This is Jund versus Merfolk, a matchup that I have to think is hard for Merfolk.
This is one of the worst matchups for Merfolk to play against. End of story. I mean, Merfolk is all about trying to take advantage of the unfair decks of the format, get a curve into play, start attacking. Similar to Delver-style decks, except it has a heavy island walk element, which makes certain matchups better and doesn't really affect others. But against a deck that's all removal spells, I mean, Tarmogoyf versus Silvergill Adept is no contest. Force of Will versus Lightning Bolt in this kind of matchup, no contest. And forget about it if Punishing Fire plus Grove gets online.
Yeah,
so.
You're daring Jund to kill your lords, and Jund is more than up to the task.
Yeah.
We see here Keathly up a game, and right now on the board with Tarmogoyf, Deathrite Shaman, and Bloodbraid Elf, looks to be well positioned against a pair of Silvergill Adepts and an Aether Vial. He has a healthy 16 life.
Island Walk, not a factor in the matchup.
Right, a Lightning Bolt in the graveyard that can only assume took out a Merfolk. All right, well, so far 16 and 15, though. Nick can still make a game of it right now. You see he's going to activate Mutavault along with these two Silvergill Adepts, putting Keathly down to 10. Right now, Nick Mueller's behind on the board, and that's a little bit of a concern because he doesn't actually have, well, sometimes he doesn't have as much reach as Jund, I wouldn't think.
The thing is that Nathan still gets to control sort of the terms of engagement the entire time. If he wants to slow down the pace of the game, he just gets to leave Tarmogoyf back on defense. And that's not really something Nick can deal with unless he's willing to kind of run one of his creatures in and lose it.
Yeah. And speaking of cards that have been historically good in creature mirrors, Umazau's Jite and a 4th land are on Nathan's side.
I was worried that my creature matchup wasn't good enough, so...
I put some Jites in this Jund deck.
He's got 2 in the sideboard.
Well, that card, throughout its history, has been very good in creature mirrors. If you've ever played Kamigawa Block Constructed, for example.
Yeah.
The card's very, very real in that format.
It's potent.
All right.
Actually, in Block Constructed, it ended up being not that powerful because it was so good that all the decks were built to either ignore it or fight exclusively over it.
Yeah, that is actually true. There were White Weenie and Black Aggro, and then the control decks just fought over Jite. So he was going to take 5 damage off that attack, but more importantly, 2 Jite counters. And, well, it's just enough to take care of a pair of Silvergill Adepts. He's going to get rid of 1 and just save the second one. Nick's going to go ahead and flash in a Curse Catcher on end step here. But there are some problems. How to beat a Jite with a deck full of 2/1s and 1/1s is a dilemma indeed. He drew Daze for the turn. That's not going to be any help.
This is just a brutal matchup for Merfolk. Maybe the worst one in the room.
I'm hard-pressed to think of something that's harder for them to win.
Just every single card in the Jund list, I guess with the exception of him and Dark Confidant, are all excellent or better.
Yeah, no, this is a beating. Yeah, Daze into Island appear to be his last cards. He's going to activate 2 Mutavaults, so he has a total of 4 Merfolk. They're all going to come swinging in. Keathly back Curse Catcher. He does not want to lose it to the Deathrite Shaman. Deathrite Shaman annoyingly a 1/2 instead of a 1/1. Just had to...
Yeah. I think they printed a lot of 1 toughness hate because it was still Lingering Souls territory or something like that. That was the rationale.
They didn't want him to die to it?
Yeah, I don't know.
1-mana mana dorks have a history, you know, like Land Royals have a history of being 1/1s. I think
that's kind of my opinion too. It's just, it's okay if things die sometimes.
Yeah, the card certainly is good enough to justify making it a 1/1. To be fair, I'm not sure people envisioned it being as powerful as it ended up being.
Yeah, imagine that you're an R&D team and you focus most of your testing time on standard. The Deathrite Shaman really only goes off the rails once fetch lands are in the mix.
Yeah, in standard he doesn't even see much play.
Right. It's more of a commentary on the power level of fetch lands than it is on Deathrite Shaman in many ways. But
yeah.
In Modern and Legacy, of course, the power level of the card is just through the roof.
All right, and a bunch of the creatures just biting the dust here for Nick. He did use the Jite counter to take out Silvergill Adept. Nathan went down to 6 on that attack last turn, but this turn he's going to go ahead and swing ahead and start murdering more creatures with that Jite. Needs to be a little careful because Nick could actually have maybe the ability to flash in something lethal here.
Nathan's last card in hand is Abrupt Decay, so he's got it covered.
All right, he's got covered. Not to mention, we know Nick's hand is Daze Island, so it's not going to happen. And draw card, and that will be the match. Nathan Keathly up to 7-1 with Jund, knocking on the door for the top 8. Nick Mueller and Merfolk falling a little short.
Again, just not a whole lot to be done in that matchup, especially someone who's going to come pack in things like 2 copies of Umazaz Jete, an Engineered Plague in the sideboard for good measure. I mean, this guy is not messing around with the Merfolk matchup.